Hi, you can call me Moxie. So today, it's been 6 months since I first uploaded my video titled 6 Months, where I told myself I would more wholeheartedly throw myself into this Awaken Moxie project. I mentioned being interested in reflecting on just any kind of changes I noticed within that time span. So today, I figured I'd go ahead and do just that. From time to time, I'll get a comment or a DM mentioning like channel growth or follower count. I'm aware in social media terms, I would be considered still a very small creator. Then in person-to-person terms, even just one person watching is their own unique individual, and I think it's pretty neat if they decide to stop by and check out my stuff. I think by now most people have probably come across a post, be it on TikTok or YouTube, where let's say a big group of creators meet up and there'll be someone or a couple of people in the group that mention they realize just how rude and stuck up some of their fellow creators are, and how poorly those creators can speak of their followers. And the idea of a creator feeling that way and referring to their audience in such a manner blows my mind every time to think about. Side note, when I talk about this, I'm referencing adult creators. I feel like if the creator is younger, like teens and whatnot, they definitely need like a lot of guidance and help to navigate the weird world of social media in terms of establishing a strong, secure sense of self and not being too influenced by the opinion of others, whether it be a high opinion or a low opinion. This is just talking about like the adult creators. But yeah, I just think it's so crazy whenever I hear about other creators thinking that way, because in my eyes, we're very much all the same. Let's say the only difference between some of us is the fact that some of us film ourselves doing silly little TikTok trends, while other people just kind of do the silly TikTok trends in the privacy of their own home while they're cleaning up or in the kitchen, you know? I also feel the same way in that regard about celebrities or people with follower counts in the millions. I can respect and admire their work, be it acting, music, etc., but I don't consider anyone to be better than anyone else just because they've amassed an internet following. I felt this way before, but especially now more than ever, just because I know how weird/normal I am, and I'm out here creating content. So it's just a further confirmation for me of how weird/normal everybody else doing it is. I will occasionally get the question on like how to start/how to successfully grow accounts, and I've thought about this, and I think I mentioned it even in one of my earlier videos. I've had this thought of, if you're trying to grow your accounts, I wouldn't necessarily follow any of my advice, just because thus far that hasn't really been a motive of mine. It hasn't been something that I've had in mind while posting content. And there have actually been times where I've like noticed maybe if I did one thing in particular or a few things in particular, it might help with growth, but let's just say I didn't really feel like doing those particular set of things, or I just wasn't really interested in that at the time being, and so I just didn't do it. So if you're trying to learn how to grow an account, there are a bunch of other creators who kind of specifically focus on that, so I would seek them out. Don't follow my advice. But yes, tying back to a few times where people have asked me, how was I able to get started? And mainly, how was I able to overcome any kind of issues of being too self-critical to actually post anything to even begin? I feel like my case is a little less common in that regard, because if you've seen my earlier videos, you've seen me mention this, but just as a little recap for anybody that might be new. There are two main driving forces behind how I got started with Awaken Moxie. The first one was to do things that bring me bits of joy every day as a way to directly combat depression. And the second force was, if by chance someone happened to stumble across my content and they might be feeling kind of down or maybe just bored, if they saw me just trying different things and trying to find things that would bring me joy and make me happy, they might consider trying to explore different areas of their own life in search of their own extra happiness and enjoyment. So because those are kind of like my motives for why I have Awaken Moxie, it's a little strange because I'm not necessarily trying to entertain anyone. I'm just doing things that I think are fun and will make my own life more fun. So let's say if your motives for creating any kind of account is with the hopes of like establishing an online presence, then of course it would be wise to be more mindful of how the audience will perceive your content and wanting to craft it in a way to make it as good as possible. And I don't think that's like a bad reason to want to be a content creator at all, even if it's not necessarily the one that I have. What I will say, I think regardless of motive, the best way to overcome any kind of stagnating self-criticism is to just initially try doing whatever it is you find fun and lead with that. So don't think too much about, I guess, necessarily what is the most popular thing to do, what's the most quick growing market. I think if you just start by doing something you already have fun doing and you just throw yourself into those situations of, I guess, recording. Let's say, for example, you like playing guitar, you can't do it that well yet, but you want to grow and improve and maybe establish yourself as a musician. If you can just get yourself to turn on a camera and record yourself playing a few notes, even if they sound horrendous, just record it. Maybe do a little bit of editing if you want, post it, even if you know your product or your quality can't even compete with the quality of what you normally see on social media. If this is the best you can do in this first moment of creation, that's fine. That's fine. I can't think of any better way to start, because if you just keep doing that, as you keep just playing around and getting more familiar with every aspect of, I guess, content creation, you'll find yourself naturally just picking up ways to improve. You'll start figuring how to better angle your camera. You'll start improving playing those notes on the guitar or whatever it is you want to do. Because that's exactly what I've been doing this whole time. My first videos, I had no idea how to do lighting. I didn't really know much about makeup. There's still a lot about it that I'm learning. But after just getting through post after post and having fun with the whole process of creating it, I've learned a lot that way. Another element of what I've been mentioning that I've seen in comments, DMs, and questions and stuff is, I guess, sort of like the notion of relevancy. If someone starts social media with the goal of fame in mind, I don't personally mind if they have that motive, as fame can lead to a wide array of life experiences and opportunities. That being said, for creators who might have this goal, as well as creators who don't, I think it's good to keep in mind the outlook that fame and relevancy are both very fleeting. Take, for example, how many creators can you think of that were really blowing up, mainly on TikTok, just last year, that you're now realizing you haven't seen or thought of in months? Not even with any kind of negative happening around them or any kind of negative feeling towards them. You may even quite like the creators that just came to mind. It's just with how insanely fast the algorithm and trends are, you blink and you're hand-delivered a plethora of new content that's AI catered for your enjoyment. I wish somehow, some way, there would be less focus on numbers all across the board, numbers of views, of likes, of followers, because I think it's really true that just because certain content may not have a huge amount of numbers behind it, it doesn't always reflect on the quality of whatever that content is. I'm sure we can all think of some kind of movie, art piece, song that we feel like deserves a lot more recognition, but it just doesn't really seem to have it in the mainstream. So far in Awaken Moxie, whenever I make stuff, I just make things that I like, and I do my best to make it as good as I can with whatever knowledge I have up to that point. And I feel like as long as I stay true to that, making things that I like to the best of my ability in that moment, whatever number of people are there and enjoy the content are the exact number of people that should be there. If more people enjoy one kind of content that I make over another, that's fine, because no one owes me a like. As of right now, usually more meme-related OC content tends to do the best stat-wise across the board. But if some days I feel like doing a random cosplay or a unique makeup look, even if people aren't as interested in those posts as they are the others, that's okay, because no one owes me engagement and I still had fun putting it all together. Now that I've discussed some of the questions and topics that I've been considering the past few months, I'll go ahead and mention a few of the more tangible things. that I've noticed. Firstly, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is makeup. So before I started posting on Awaken Moxie, I did not know much about makeup at all. I was somebody who was very much of the mindset, well, I know the basics and everything else looks way too complicated, so I don't really want to even try. If I can grab some examples of how I initially did my makeup, I'll insert them here. And you can just see kind of how simplistic and a little dated the style was. So I just find it kind of wild that one of the changes I witnessed within the 6-month time period is going from someone who was too overwhelmed to even attempt modern day makeup into becoming someone who actually gets questions about how I do my own makeup. These days I've received a lot of comments about the makeup for my OCs. Once I did a TikTok live and I had a few people asking me, oh, like, how do you do the makeup for this character and whatnot? And I was there just kind of showing them like what products I used and how I went about it, which I think is one of the most tangible kind of changes. There's still so much I don't know about makeup and the landscape is changing every day, but it's been really fun learning more about that. Next up is lighting. I think if you're someone who's just starting out and you're really trying to figure out how to improve the quality of your content making, lighting just goes such a long way. I didn't know anything about 3-point lighting, and after just trying to set up my characters in different places around the room and having different backdrops, all of that requires like adjusting the lighting to get them to best show up. I don't know anything about like the technicalities of lighting yet. I've just been picking up what works and what doesn't along the way for my own situations, but that's been something that's been neat to learn more about. Okay, and next one that I'm gonna mention I think is probably the biggest sort of, what would be a good word for it? The biggest, I guess the biggest thing I've had to learn so far is streaming. I'm sure for a lot of people, streaming wouldn't really be something that would require too much extra knowledge to learn. Maybe they game a lot, they know the specs of their computer, and they're good to go on most of all those fronts. But for me, especially because like I took a lot of time to learn about how to do it as safely as possible for both myself and my viewers, there was an absolutely crazy amount of stuff to learn for me. From like the overlays, the alert box, how to make sure your camera doesn't lag. And then I remember there was that whole fiasco with Streamlabs OBS or something like that, where they basically just stole the name of OBS without their accepted permission. And so like the stuff that I learned about them, I had to relearn on OBS. So for me, it was quite the journey learning how to set all that up. But in the end, I was able to start my first stream, and I ended up doing a few on Twitch, and it was a lot of fun. And the people that were able to stop by when they could, they made it a really fun experience, and there were a lot of really supportive people. So I'd say learning and starting streaming was probably the biggest thing that I attempted to tackle within the 6 months of Awaken Moxie, and just trying anything and everything that popped into mind. Finally, with that being said, had I not started Awaken Moxie, I don't think I would have attempted to try learning about streaming. And had I not gone through all the bumps and ups and downs of learning how to get streaming started, I don't think I would have come back to this, which I realized last month, and that was I want to try learning how to make music. So I, like many people, am someone who has really deeply enjoyed music, and I have for as long as I can remember. All kinds of different types has just been almost a necessity in my life. And as much as I love music, unfortunately, I sound like a dying cat when I try to sing. My voice is just, it's not it. So as much as I wish I could sing, it's not really something that I think my vocal cords are built to do well. However, when I started going to my first EDM shows, and I saw these DJs having a great time on stage and getting to still enjoy music even if they weren't necessarily the ones singing, and I thought, wow, I'd really love to do that too. So I remember when I was in college, I ended up downloading a DAW, which is basically a program that DJs use to make their tracks, and I was really excited to try learning. But the moment I opened up the program, and I'm sure if anybody here makes music, produces music, or has experience with it, you know just how like insanely overwhelming that can be. There's so many buttons, and all those buttons can do different things to one single sound, and the options are absolutely endless. And so back in college, even though I was excited for it, I just kind of got overwhelmed by the staggering amount of learning I would have to do to even really begin, especially because like I never played any kind of musical instruments growing up, so I don't know music theory or have a background in that. And so back then, even though it was something that I was excited about, it ended up just kind of slipping away because it seemed just like too much to really do, and I was busy with schoolwork and all of that. And for me, going through the process of learning how to stream kind of solidified this notion in my mind that okay, if you could learn how to do all of those things and still put up a stream, something that you had no idea how to do months ago, it is possible for you to learn how to produce music. And so in February, I ended up downloading a new DAW, and since then, I've been spending many hours learning bit by bit everything that I can from ground zero, just exploring the program and how it works, listening to different samples, learning about music theory, watching YouTube videos about everything that you can possibly do. And recently I finally bought 2 courses to help further expand my beginner's knowledge. So if people that have been around for a while might have noticed that my TikTok posting isn't quite as frequent, is because earlier in February, I was taking the time to learn how to stream. And since then, and for the foreseeable future, I'm earnestly trying to learn music production. Now, as for the kind of music that I intend to put together, I'm personally someone who really loves trap. Just like the filthier the drops, the better. And so right now, that's the area that I'm learning about the most. I'm really focusing on learning how to make beats. And I remember mentioning to a couple of my friends that the world of music production, it's like its own universe, and every little dial, every little knob, every little wub sound that you can make, it's like its own little star, and there's just like endless possibilities in creating your own little constellations of songs. And even though I might have years worth of learning to do before I can finally produce something solid that I really enjoy, that's okay, because I'm learning a bit more about it every day, just like I've been learning a bit more about makeup every day. I learned a bit more about streaming every day. So within the past 6 months, it's been interesting just growing in different areas and finding old passions that I might have never revisited otherwise. I'm curious for anyone who might have followed along with my 6-month period, if you ended up learning more about anything you were interested in, and even if maybe life just caught up with its own plans and you had to put certain pursuits on pause. Obviously, time isn't real. You can start and stop whenever you want. If you have anything to share about your own past 6 months that you'd like to mention in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. If you have any new plans moving forward, I'd also love to hear about that as well. I know for myself, I intend to keep having fun with content creation and learning as much as I can about music. I'm excited to see where we all meet in another few months of time. Maybe I'll do another video later, starting a new time period, maybe another 6 months, maybe it'll be 3 months, I don't really know. But for now, this was just a reflection on the past from the last video I posted about it till now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll have a great day. Till next time, bye-bye!